Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be diving into the second core study of the biological approach in AI psychology subject. So let us jump in straight away. Today's topic will be about mindfulness and brain scans by Hölzel et al. Now this is the outline for the topic for today. So let us talk a little bit about the author behind this research. She is Dr. Britta Hölzel, a psychologist, neuroscientist, and a mindfulness-based stress reduction (MBSR). So you will be seeing this MBSR a lot of time throughout the whole topic. And she is also a yoga teacher. She discovered ancient yoga and meditation traditions in India and meditation temples in Thailand while she was backpacking through Asia. Excited by the transformational power and where she find from these practices. So she decided to use magnetic resonance imaging, which is what we call MRI, to investigate the structural and functional brain changes that occur following regular practices. Now, the psychology being investigated, there are two here. So, number one, mindfulness, and second would be the localization of function of the brain. Now, first, let us go into mindfulness. So, this study focuses on the effects of mindfulness, a stress reduction technique used to improve well being, which is MBSR. So, this technique develops awareness of the present moment and encourages compassionate and non judgmental attitude. So you may ask what mindfulness really is. Now, sometimes with different people, they might have their own interpretation of what mindfulness is. Therefore, for the purpose of understanding this research better, I thought it would be good to use this definition from APA, American Psychological Association. Now, according to them, mindfulness means awareness of one internal states and surroundings. The concept has been applied to various therapeutic interventions. For example, mindfulness based cognitive behavior therapy, and then mindfulness based stress reduction, which is the topic here, and mindfulness meditation, which is to help people avoid destructive or automatic habits and responses by learning to observe their own thoughts, emotions, and other present moments experiences without judging or reacting to them. Now, to put into simple terms, mindfulness is number one, a life skill that can deepen our sense of well being and fulfillment. And it can be also explained as we are paying attention to what is occurring in our present moments and with an attitude of openness and non judgmental acceptance. And it can also explain with we engaging all of our senses as we open to our entire experience, becoming aware of our body, emotions, thoughts, and the external environment. Now, let me give you a few examples of being mindfulness. So, imagine you are eating your favorite snack. For me, it's definitely cookies. So instead of rushing through it, mindfulness is about slowing down and really noticing the taste, texture, and smell. You are focusing not only on that moment, enjoying each bite without thinking about other things like homework or looking at your phone. So, what about when dealing with stress? When you are stressed out, say for example about an upcoming exam, mindfulness helps by making you pause and notice how your body feels. Maybe your heart is racing or your stomach is tense. You simply observe these feelings without judging them. And this can help you calm down and feel a bit more in control. So, I have a last example over here, which is listening to music. And when you listen to your favorite song, mindfulness is about tuning in fully to the beat the lyrics, and the instruments. You are not thinking about what happened earlier or worrying about tomorrow. You are just enjoying the music in that moment. And have you ever tried mindfulness practice before? If yes, I'd like to hear your experiences in the comment. So now let us come back to the study here. So the second item that is being investigated is the localization of function. So there are two specific brain structure we are interested in this study, which is the hippocampus and insula. So now on the left upper corner, you can see this is what our hippocampus looks like. So hippocampus is associated with memory and emotion regulation, whereas insula, you can see on the left lower corner, it's a big area which is called insula, and within insula you can see a few more names, a few more regions over here. Now, the insula is important for gustatory and sensory-motor processing, risk-reward behavior, autonomics, pain pathway, and auditory and vestibular functioning. So basically, it is because of insula that people are able to perceive pain and have the awareness about their body and self. Now, you may be asking, how do we know these brain regions are in charge of these specific skills? So, over the years, neuroscientists have done a lot of research with brain scannings. They monitor how this brain change over time following the person carrying out this particular practice or certain skills. So, and this is also exactly what this study was doing as well. Now, Dr. Prita and her colleagues, they use a lot of MRI scans to create detailed models of the human brain. With these MRI scans, they measure microscopic changes that occurs in specific brain structures following this mindfulness practice. Now, so these changes are called structural plasticity, and these can be quantified using something called voxel-based morphometry, in short, VBM. So let's dive in a little bit deeper in VBM. So, VBM is a technique used by the scientists to study the brain using images from MRI scans. So, to get a person's MRI scans of the brain, you have to go through a procedure. So, where you can see in the picture over here, the right upper corner here, the person would have to lie down on this platform, and this person would then slowly go through this huge, gigantic um, machine where there is a lot of magnetic component in it. So this is how the researcher get the MRI scan. So from this MRI scan, you will get your brain images. It creates these MRI scans can create a detailed pictures of your brain. So these images show a different part of the brain, like gray matter, where most of the brain cells are, and white matter, the connections between those cells. So I will talk a little bit deeper what is gray matter and white matter in the next few slides. So these scans, you can just imagine that your brain is like a 3D puzzles that are made out with a lot of tiny cubes called voxels, which is a short for volume elements. So each voxel represents a small part of the brain. So this allows the scientists to measure changes. So they compare the number of the voxels filled with the gray matter in different people or before and after a treatment. So in this situation, in this case, would be the mindfulness training, and the researchers they can find out if there are any changes. This also helps us to understand the brain better, where the scientists can understand how the brain changes in response to things like learning a new skills, practicing mindfulness, or even dealing with stress. It can show the scientists where which area of the brain are growing bigger or actually shrinking. And this can tell us a lot about how our brain works and how we can improve our mental health. So now let us go in a little bit deeper in what is the gray matter and the white matter. Now you can see this is a human skull over here. So if we cut the skull in this particular angle, you can directly look into the brain. And if you were to view the brain from the top, so this is what you can see. Now, the outer layer, which is called the gray matter, is actually like a orangey color over here, which is surrounding the brain. And then you can see the inner layer, which is called the white matter. Now, the gray and white matter is actually, you can observe this throughout our whole spinal cord. However, when it comes to spinal cord, the inner layer will be the gray matter and the outer layer will become the white matter. So let us compare the gray and white matter over here. So gray matter actually has a concentration of neuronal cells, bodies, dendrites, and synapses, whereas the white matter, it consists mainly of myelinated axons. And the gray matter consists primarily of neuronal cells body, whereas the white matter is composed of the long range connections, which is called axons, and they facilitate communication between different brain regions. So higher gray matter density in certain region is often associated with enhanced cognitive functions, emotional regulation, and overall brain health. Myelin, on the other hand, in the white matter, is a fatty substance that insulated these axons, and it enhances the speed and efficiency of the electrical signal transmissions. So I have another picture over here where you can see. Now, here you can see soma cells, which is the cell of the body on the right over here. And this is the gray matter, where you can see the longish shape over here, which is the white matter. Now, you may ask, why were the researchers more interested in increasing the gray matter than the white matter if both actually they are very important? So, in a functional role, gray matter is primarily composed of neuronal cells bodies and is directly involved in processing informations, including the sensory perception when we make a decision and our emotional regulation. Now, the changes in gray matter density are often associated with improvements in cognitive functions and emotional health, making a key area of interest in understanding the effect of mindfulness practice. So, actually, both are equally important. But for the sake of this study, because we are focusing on understanding how mindfulness affect the brain, therefore we are looking more into the gray matter. Now, gray matter changes are often seen as an indicator of something called neuroplasticity, which is the brain ability to reorganize itself by forming new neuronal connections. So this particular relevant in the context of a mindfulness, as the practice of mindfulness is taught to promote structural changes that enhance cognitive and emotional functioning. Now, the measurement and analysis. So, this particular technique, VVM, that I mentioned earlier. So it's very common to use to access gray matter changes, making it easier for researchers to quantify and analyze these changes in relation to specific interventions, such as mindfulness and training. So VVM is not just being used to measure the gray and white matters, but it is also a technique to use to measure any part of the brain. So it's not just because we want to measure the gray and white matters, and then we use VVM. VVM is widely used when you want to measure the brain regions. Now, the next part, we will go into the technique that's being investigated in this study, which is the mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. So before I go in, let's check in our feeling right now. So what's your feeling now? How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling anxious, calm, stressed, excited, or a little bit sad or happy, bored or worried? So typically, we would think that we only experience one particular feelings, while in reality, it's not quite right. You can actually experience multiple feelings at the one particular moment. So right now, probably you are a bit stressed, but you are also excited as well. Stressed maybe because of you are predicting an upcoming exam, and maybe excited because you are learning something that you are very much interested in. So you can comment below as well, like what are you feeling right now? So this is a video that I found on YouTube. Obviously, I cannot play right now because of the copyright issues, but I highly recommend if you want to know what MBSR really is, you can search for this video. Now, let me explain a little bit further about MBSR here. So, MBSR combines Buddhist meditation with a scientific evidence based approach. It is developed in the USA by a professor named John Kabat-Zinn. And it is a 8-week program. So each week there will be a 2.5 hours of a group meeting plus a 1 day 6.5 hours of a training day. So what do they learn in the group meetings? In the group meetings, they have to learn these three particular techniques. So number one is body scanning. So you get to learn how to slowly becoming aware of sensations in each area of the body, and in turn gradually developing the awareness of the whole body and mind. Now the second thing that you will learn is mindful yoga. You will do gentle stretching, coordinated slow movements, and breathing with a focus of on the moment to moment experience. And they also learn about how to do sitting meditation. You will develop awareness of the sensation of your own breathing and of sensory information. So, for example, our five senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and emotions, and gradually developing awareness of all aspects of consciousness. So, this is a picture that I found online. So, it's teach you how to do a body scan meditation. So, the first step here is to get comfortable. Then you close your eyes, focus on your breath. You bring your awareness to a specific part of your body. You can then spend 20 to 60 seconds noticing any of the sensation in this particular part of your body. So, and you can start imagining tension decreasing with each breath. You release your body, focus on that particular part of your body. Then you move on to the next part of your body and continue the same cycle. If your thoughts started to wander, just gently bring your awareness back. So after several scans, you let your awareness travel across your whole entire body. And this will help to release your focus and come back to your surrounding. And another one, what I found is about the benefits of meditation for students. With practicing meditation, you can release stress, you have a better working memory, enhance self esteem, you can focus better, you have greater resilience, enhance your knowledge retention, which everybody needs as a student. You have a better sleep quality, and you get an overall improved mental health. Now, so beside VBM, what else did the researchers use to measure changes in mindfulness? Apart from using the MRI brain scans and VBM techniques, the researcher actually used something called the five facet of mindfulness questionnaire by Ruth Bear and colleagues, which they have developed in the year 2006. So actually, it's a 39 item scales to measure five factors of mindfulness. You can actually get access to the link in the description where you can download the whole entire document, and why not just do one for yourself? So in this 39 questions here, after answering all of the questions, and when you get your score, you would get a sense of if you are able to observe, or in other words, attend to or noticing internal and external stimuli, such as sensations, emotions, cognitions, sight, sounds, and smell. And you will also be able to describe or noting or mentally labeling these stimuli with words. In other words, if you have the language to describe your surrounding. And if you are present of non-judging of inner experience, refraining from a evaluation of one's sensation, cognitions, and emotions, or if you're a person who is non-reactive to inner experience, which in other words means allowing thoughts and feeling to come and go without attention getting caught in them. Now, I can now go into the aims of the study. First of all, the aims of the study is to identify if regular participation in MBSR leads to a measurable neurological changes in the brain, which might be associated with traits changes related to mindfulness practice. And number two is to identify brain structures which change as a result of that 8 weeks MBSR program. Let us move on to research method techniques being used in this research. So the first one will be experimental. The researchers were looking for a causal relationship between MBSR and gray matter concentration in various brain structures. Basically, what it means, uh, the researcher wanted to see if those participants who attended MBSR program would have a increased of the gray matter concentration in their brain. So this is what we can explain as a causal relationship. So some of the measurements were taken in a controlled setting, say for example the MRI scans, but there were also some part of the studies occur in a more naturalistic environments. So in this situation where the participants incorporated MBSR exercises while they were engaging in daily activities, say, for example, walking and doing some housework. So, this would be further explained in the procedure in the later slides. So, now we move on to longitudinal designs. So as the word here long suggests, would be the research were being carried out in a long period of time. And this particular research was a 8-week period. So there were a pre and post. So data was collected at the beginning of the research, and then another one again at the end of the 8 weeks period. Let us move on to more research method techniques being used in this research. So the next one would be correlational, a non-causal relationship, or in other words, correlational relationship was being used. And it was tested between the time spent on mindfulness exercises and the gray matter concentration. So the researcher wanted to see if an increase of time spent on mindfulness exercises, would we see an increase in gray matter concentration or not? Or when there is less time spent on the mindfulness exercises, and would we see a decrease of gray matter concentration, or a less increase, a smaller increase of in the gray matter concentration. So in other words, these two variables, they may change together, but we can't say for sure if one is causing another to change. So another research method was self-report. Here would be the four set of mindfulness questionnaire. So last but not least, the independent measures. There are two groups of participants in this research. So one, they attended the weekly MBSR programs, which what we call them as experimental group. And the other group would be the one that who did not receive the MBSR group, which we call them as control group. In this research, the researcher called them the wait list control group as well, because obviously the control group participants, they did not receive the MBSR programs during the research. However, from ethics point of view, obviously it's not ethical to do so. And what the researcher did was, after the research being done, they enroll all these participants in the control group into the program. So what basically means was that they wasn't not being allowed to engage to enroll to the MBSR program, but they were put on a wait list. Now let's move on to IV and DV of this particular research, independent variable and dependent variable. So an independent variable is something that the researcher in this experiment change or in control in the experiment. So you can think of it as the cause in the cause and effect relationship. It's what you are testing to see if it will make a difference. So basically, independent variable, which means what you can change or in control. In this situation here, would be whether if the participants receive the MBSR or not, as there are two groups of control here. And another independent variable would be whether the data was collected at the beginning or at the end of the 8 weeks study period. So let us move on to dependent variable. So dependent variable is what you as a researcher will have to measure in the experiment to see if the effect of changing the independent variable would have an effect. Uh, so in this situation here, the dependent variable here is basically what the researcher would have to measure. They have to measure the gray matter concentration in the specific brain area, which is here the hippocampus and the the insula, using the VBM techniques. Another one they would have to measure would be the questionnaires, the 5 facets of the mindfulness, And also the third DV here will be the time spent on mindfulness exercises between the weekly session, which is the participants will have to record in their daily diary. So let's go into the sample, which is the participants. Here we have two groups, as mentioned earlier. We will go into talk about the experimental group first. So there were 18 healthy adults, 8 male and 10 female, with a mean age of 37.89 years old, sorry. So the standard deviation would be 4.04 years. They are all right-handed, and they were recruited from 4 different MBSR courses at the Center for Mindfulness, New England, USA. So now they are either self-referred or being recommended by their physician due to stress. Self-referred means probably they have came across some flyers that they get to know about the program and they enrolled themselves. So 6 males and 10 females were assigned to the MBSR group. So here, actually, 2 male drop out due to the discomfort during the MRI scanning. Now, I actually showed the MRI scanning machine at the beginning. One of the reason both male drop out was because when you do the MRI scanning, sometimes can be quite claustrophobic for certain people. And when you go through the procedure, the machine actually makes very loud noises. So it can be very uncomfortable for some of the people. So therefore, two drop out. And the ethnicities of this group were 13 Caucasians, one Asian, one African American, and one multi-ethnic. Okay, so how they recruit all these participants. So they have their own inclusion criteria. So number one is self-reported medical information, where they all of them should be physically and psychologically healthy and not taking any regular medication. And they have to pledge to attend the full 8 weeks program, and they have to do the daily homework. And they also only include these participants if they have limited meditation experiences. So they put it into something that can be measured, which was they had taken no classes in the last 6 months or no more than 4 classes in the past 5 years, and no more than 10 classes up in their lifetime up until when they about to start the program. So the usual course fees was reduced for all participants to thank them for their participation. Now we are going into the participants in the control group. There were 17 participants, 11 male and 6 female, with a mean age of 39 years old. Standard deviation is 9.2 years, and they have an average of 17.3 years of education. Standard deviation 1.8 years. Ethnicities were 13 Caucasians, 2 Asians, 2 African American, and 1 Hispanic. So the group did not differ in age, where the reporting here is that they were they different in terms of age and education level. So here the researcher used the t-test to see if there were significant difference between the two group. So as you can see here, the t-test value here is 0.56. So this value tells us how different the two groups are in terms of age and the degree of freedom Here is the for the test is 22.3, so which is based on the sample size, and it helps interpreting the t-test value. So the p-value here, which is 0.58 here, tell us whether this difference is statistically significant. So typically, if the p here is less than 0.05, so we will consider the difference is significant. However, here the p-value is 0.58, so which is much higher than 0.05. So we can conclude that the groups do not significantly differ in age. So let's go into the education comparison. So the t-test value here for the education is negative 0.56, and the degree of freedom is 30. And the p-value is again 0.58, which is above 0.05. So again, it means that there's no significant difference in education levels between these groups. So overall, since the p-value for both age and education, they are above 0.05, so we can again conclude there is no significant difference between the group in terms of both age or education. Now, so to put it clearer and a better visual representative over here, so we have two groups, obviously, experimental group and the control group. So the experimental group on the left here are those receive MBSR programs. On the right are those did not receive the MBSR program. So you can see here both, on the left, experimental group, 80 of them, 8 male, 10 female, 2 drop out, and therefore there were only 6 male and 10 female. Mean age 38, standard deviation 4 years. 13 Caucasians, 1 Asian, 1 African American, and 1 multi-ethnic. All of them were right-handed. Control group 17 adults, 11 male, 6 female, mean age 39 years old, standard deviation 9.2, average of 17.3 years of education, standard deviation 1.8 years, 13 Caucasians, 2 Asians, 2 African American, 1 Hispanic. So again, here the groups did not differ in either the education or the age as well. And so these two are both independent, meaning they do not have any crossover. However, what are the similarity between these two groups? So it was the inclusion criteria. So which means both groups would have to fulfill the inclusion criteria over here. So which was also mentioned earlier. Both of this group, all of them need to be physically and psychologically healthy. Um, both, even though the control group, they did not attend the 8 weeks MBSR programs, but at the very beginning of the research, both groups of the participants, they need to be able to attend the full 8 weeks program. And both again need to have a limited meditation experiences. Let us jump into the procedure of the research now. Before the MBSR program, MRI scans of the brain were conducted 2 weeks before the experimental group first session. A lot of 3D models were created by taking pictures of 128 sagittal slices, example here from the top to the bottom of the brain, and combining them using the computer software. Researchers then analyzed the model using VVM and to measure the concentration of gray matter in the region of interest. which is the hippocampus and insula, and the brain as a whole as well. All the participants also completed the FFMQ questionnaires. We move on now to during the 8 weeks MBSR. The experimental group obviously took part in the 8 weekly MBSR session. These sessions took place at the Center for Mindfulness at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. The experimental group were given a 45-minute audio recording of guided mindfulness exercises. Here, which mean the body scans, yoga, and meditation, to help them to complete the exercises at home. Say, for example, when they were doing their washing up, or when they were eating, or when they were taking a shower, or going out for a walk, they can listen to this 45 minutes of audio. And after the 8 weeks of program, what they did was MRI scans again of the brain were taken 2 weeks after the last session for all participants, whether you're in the experimental group or whether you are in the control group. Here, which means from the first day until on the 66th day, they took the MRI scans again. Here, everyone have to take the FFMQ again. Each participants of their two scans were compared using VBM software to measure any of the differences in gray matter concentration in their brain. The differences in the 5 facets of mindfulness score were also calculated. Let's move on to the results of the research. Amount of mindfulness practice. So, an average of 22.6 hours of MBSR exercises were carried out by the experimental group. Overall, participants spent about 27 minutes per day. Most of the time spent was on the body scanning exercise. Participants spent 2 times more time on this activity than the yoga and meditation. There were no significant correlation between any of the individual exercises, say, for example, body scanning and yoga or yoga and meditation. So this suggests that the different people, so this suggests that with different people, they have their own preferences, but doing a lot of one particular exercise did not mean that you also did a lot of the other two exercises as well. Another part of the result we can look into, which is the increased gray matter concentration, especially on the left hippocampus. There were significant increases which associated with memory and emotional regulation. Another one would be posterior cingulate cortex, PCC, were increased as well. And in this particular brain region, it involved self-referential thoughts and emotional processing. Another part of the brain would be the temporal parental junction, TBJ. Changes were noted as well, which play in a role of social cognition and perspective taking. Two clusters of increased gray matter concentration were identified in the cerebellum, which is linked to the motor control and cognitive functions. We are now at the very last few parts of the research. So let's jump straight into the conclusion. There were a good few conclusions being drawn from this research. So one of them would be the structural changes in the brain. For the experimental group, the participants that participated in the mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, it leads them to have a significant structural changes in the brain. For example, here, the gray matter concentration has increased. On top of that, the left hippocampus, posterior cingulate cortex, temporal parietal junction, and the cerebellum were also all increased as well. Another one would be the longitudinal effects. The studies demonstrated that these changes occur over an 8 weeks period. So, indicating that mindfulness practice can have a lasting effects on the brain structure. And comparison to control group, the changes were significant when compared to control group that who did not participated in the MBSR program. And this suggests that the effects are especially due to mindfulness training. Another one will be implication for mental health. The findings support the idea of mindfulness practices can actually enhance cognitive and emotional well-being and promoting beneficial changes in the brain structure. And last but not least, it did not confirm from the previous finding. No change relating to the insula, and the researchers conclude that changes in this region may actually require more than 8 weeks of practice. Let us talk a little bit about the ethical issues that were presented in the research. First of all of the participants were protected from harm, which was one of the strengths of the research. The researcher took many steps to protect their participants from physical and psychological harm. They make sure that none of the participants had the metallic implants, for example, pacemaker and or the dental fillings that could have been affected by the magnets in the MRI scanner. So talking about the MRI scanner here, they also didn't allow anyone to participate who might have become distressed during the scanning procedure due to claustrophobia. So last one would be participants in the waitlist control group also receive MBSR after the study was completed, and so that they will also be able to benefit from the MBSR. Let's take a look at the methodological issues over here. First of all, we will look into the reliability. It's actually one of the weakness because it lacked of a standardization between the weekly mindfulness session. Remember, the participants they had to attend the weekly 2.5 hours of program, and for the rest of the week, they have to do the homework, which is 45 minutes of audio recording. There were three different techniques, so the participants could actually choose any of the techniques to practice at home. So therefore, um, they can choose what they wanted to do each day, where, and for how long. Therefore, the procedure cannot be replicated exactly. The differences in the gray matter concentration of the post intervention may not be reliable. However, the internal consistency of the questionnaire would be one of the advantage in terms of reliability. The use of the questionnaire FFMQ before and after the program, this is highly reliable. It contains of 8 questions measuring acting with awareness. The correlation between the answers to these 8 questions is plus 0.87. This strong positive correlation shows that each question reliably assess this particular facet of mindfulness. Next, we will go into the validity. Is actually one of the strength of this research. So the experimental method and design, they use the independent measure designs. The researchers were able to measure changes in the gray matter concentration for people who have and have not taken part in the MBSR program. And second one will be the use of the control group increased the study's validity, strengthening the conclusion that the MBSR program has caused an increase in the gray matter concentration in certain brain structure. However, there were also some confounding variables where the lack of control of the confounding variables Let me explain further a little bit more, where the experimental group had the added benefits of potentially making new friends at their weekly sessions and take part in a gentle exercise through yoga stretches, in addition to the mindfulness meditation. Um, this makes very hard to identify actually which factor led them to have the increase in gray matter concentration relative to the control group. The mindfulness or the social aspect of the group membership or the exercise actually cause the increase in the gray matter concentration. So, which this might affect the study validity. Another one would be Another weakness would be self-report data response set, which means the participants sometimes think less carefully about the answers as they go on, simply by just answering in a similar way to previous questions. There are changes in the participant might provide socially desirable responses, which also might reduce the validity of the score. However, from the other aspect, they did use another type of quantitative data, which was the quantitative data to measure the gray matter concentration of the brain, which also is the strength of the research. It was conducted by specialist computer software, not by interpretation of the researcher. Let's go into the generalization and ecological validity. They have a weakness over here where the generalizing is very hard to be applied beyond the sample. Number one, it was because due to the small sample size, study involved a relatively small number of participants, 16 of them in the MBSR group and 17 of them in the control group. Small sample size can limit the generalizability of the findings. Participants also have an average of 17.5 years of education. Therefore, it would be helpful to see whether if similar effects would be found with older adults or people with lower levels of education. This can be a few of the recommendation for the future studies who wish to replicate this particular research. However, they do have some strength as well. The findings have greater ecological validity. The researchers encourage the experimental participants to incorporate mindfulness into their everyday life. For example, they can listen to the audio recorded guided meditation when they are engaging in daily life activities. Let us go into the evaluation of the study here. And we can look from the perspective of nature versus nurture debate. You can take a few moments to think about this. If you were to debate from the nature perspective, what would that be? And if you were to have to debate from the nurture point of view, and what would that be? So let's go into it. Now, from the nature point of view, you can argue that this study supports the role of nature. Why so? You can talk about because of this study focuses a lot about the working of the brain and the development of new synapses is controlled by our genes. However, from the nurture point of view, can also be supported by the fact that the participants went through the MBSR training and that particular nurture can influence our biology or our nature. Last but not least, let us go into the very last part of today's topic, which is the evaluation from the perspective of application to everyday's life. From this study, we learned that mindfulness practice helps us to reduce stress and teach us how to regulate our emotions. Therefore, it is highly recommended this mindfulness practice to be incorporated in places such as school and workplace. And number two, the study suggests that we do not need to spend a large amount of time on these practices. But a regular daily practice might good enough to trigger neural changes that leads to improvements in our well-being. However, in my own opinion, is that obviously the more practice that you do, the better you're going to be. Perhaps for a beginner, you do not need to overwhelm yourself by practicing a huge amount of time at the beginning. As these studies suggest, the amount of time spent on mindfulness techniques doesn't really matter, but a consistency in daily practice is good enough for us to see the difference. I hope this breakdown helped to make today's topic a bit clearer and easier to understand. If you find it useful, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more A-level psychology tips, explanation, and study guides. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you are notified whenever I post new content. If you have any question at all about today's lesson or any topics that you'd like me to cover, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Good luck with your studies, and I'll see you in the next video.